Okay. This is John for Global Women's Sports Radio. Today I'm back. I'm updating Western Illinois softball coach Alisa Goler. How are you?
Hanging in there, man.
Yeah, well, you're looking good. You got the purple Western hat on. It's always good to see that. Always in softball mode, I guess, right?
Yeah, always.
Well, let's talk about your season now. I know you're 16-29 in a year, but I looked at the stats, and you guys have lost of your of your losses, 12 of them were by 2 or less runs, which I think indicates that you guys are hanging tough in the games. Could you give your assessment of the season?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. I think it's been the definition of most seasons. It's been a grind, like mentally, emotionally, physically, which is always the case. Having that many losses within two or one or two runs is taxing on you because I think every coach will tell you, while a 1-run loss looks better on paper, you'd rather get blown out because then you don't go back and like go through the game and pinpoint one exact play or one moment or one missed call or anything like that. So as a new head coach, that's been an experience for me to work through some of those moments, just being honest, because the accountability needs to be there in all aspects. So that's been a little bit different. But I do think we've been really close. And I think we've had a lot of games where if we were one hit away, in a moment or one pitch away, and that's hard, but it also at the same time gives me, I guess, like a bright spot for the future, because I think it just tells you areas that you've specifically got to work on, and it's giving us a lot of information. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was make sure that you explain to your players and also yourself that failure is information. That's all it is. So every time we've been through that, it's given us stuff to focus on to kind of work towards.
Now, do you think, or I should say, what do you think was the biggest lesson you've learned either about yourself or about coaching this season?
Oh my God, how much time do you have?
I got all day. I'm the one with time. You're the busy one.
I think there's been a couple. I think that there's been the general learning curve of being a head coach versus a specialized coach, because when you're a specialized coach, it is very easy to simply judge the outcome of a game based on your lane and how they did. And that, because that's what you're there to do, right? And now being in a position where I'm responsible for all areas, that's just been really different. Like I've had to have conversations with my pitching coach where, not in a bad way, but we've had to have more convos than I've ever had with that. I find myself having to ask him or, an outsider that watched our game to give me feedback because I need it too, to keep me balanced. It's just, there's been a lot of that. Because my biggest thing is I want to be held, I want to be, and I need to be held to the same accountability standard as our players do. So I've had to have a lot of uncomfortable conversations, and I don't think anybody wants that, but I feel like that's what I need to do to get better as a coach. So that's probably the biggest one, is being willing to put myself out there and get feedback that I don't necessarily want, but need.
Well, I was going to say, but sometimes uncomfortable conversations lead to really positive things in the end.
So I'm making sure I'm not going to be stubborn.
Now you have 4 games left with South Dakota and then 1 game with DePaul, and then you go into the Summit League playoffs. Does every team make it in the playoffs?
No, we currently have 7 teams in the Summit League, and 6 out of 7 make it.
Okay. Is there a chance that you guys could edge up into the playoffs?
I think this weekend will tell us a lot. And it's pretty, I mean, every weekend has been important, but you know how it is when you get down to the wire, then all of a sudden you get that extra layer of pressure. And with us having that bye week next week, we do need to show up and win some games this weekend.
So was the season from the coaching end, from your enjoyment in it, was it everything you thought it would be?
Being a head coach during COVID.
Well, right. I'm sorry. Yeah, let's take that out of the equation for now. Yeah, that presents some challenges, but
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's getting to work with the game that you love. I think anytime in any capacity that I get to do that, I'll enjoy it. But as far as being a head coach, yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed it. There's been some things that I think are just amazing that they're brand new experiences, I have my hand in a lot more jars now. I have the ability to kind of dictate what I might feel like on any given day, like stuff like that. But again, on the flip side, I do feel more pressure than I've ever felt because it does reflect on me. And I think that's a privilege to be a head coach. I'm sure everybody that's been doing it for a long time would tell me the same thing. But, it's like there's give and take. And I guess my answer is I think this is the perfect spot for me to be right now. I think I'm meant to be here. So I'm really happy about it.
Well, that's good to hear. Absolutely. So going to the other aspects of your job, in recruiting, like when the season ends, you're probably already recruiting now, I guess, and then it kicks into high gear when the season ends. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, the biggest change is that they finally have given us a date to lift the dead period. That's for all D1. Like D3 has been able to recruit in person, but we were shut down, as you know, which affected a lot of things. It meant no camps, no recruits on campus, no going in person. It led us to doing a lot of virtual recruiting, which we are not a sport that should be virtually.
You're right. Yeah.
It's just not. I mean, we only did it because we had to, and I think everybody
Right.
made the most of it. But if you ask any coach, the excitement is going to be with being able to go out in person again. So June 10th is when you'll start, coaches will start going out. And I think a lot of things are going to ramp up. I think people are already putting camps out, all of that. I would firmly, I fully expect that throughout the fall and the summer, there's going to be an absurd amount of softball camps on campus because we're trying to make up for that lost year of not having people come on campus. And you're going to see a lot of coaches go into overdrive, in my opinion. There's going to be lots and lots of stuff going on because we had it taken from, it's no different than the athletes that had their year taken from them. Like we're going to make up for that time. So that's like the biggest change, 100%.
So when you're recruiting, do you look for the best possible players, or do you look for specific needs that you think, to fill needs on your team?
I was always taught the goal in recruiting is to make sure you bring in people that are better or have a higher ceiling than what you're graduating out. Like that's the overall goal. You always want to try to replace with better, which in theory would be wonderful, right? And I'm saying it doesn't mean it always works out. And sometimes people surprise you and sometimes people kind of level out. It is what it is. It's part of the game. But I pretty much stick by that. I very much look at what we're losing. And in my head, I'm like, okay, we got to make sure that we're bringing in somebody that's going to have a higher ceiling. I think Western Illinois is a place that like we are going to have to develop, and that's okay. That's part of the game. But we're not going to bring in we're not going to have blue chip kids that come in here. We're going to get kids that want to grind it out and want to work. And so we need to spend extra time evaluating kind of like what their intangibles are, from the work ethic to the general athleticism, all of that, because that's going to play a part in what we need. But I think for me personally, my biggest thing is making sure that we're pulling kids from organizations that are day in and day out playing great competition, because with that comes a general competitiveness. It comes like people that are used to winning, because that is something that plays in. Like if you're used to winning games, you're going to hold yourself to a different standard. And that's the kind of players that we need to bring in. So I guess, I would love I always want the best player. I also always want a good person, but there is so much that goes into it. And sometimes if you're picking between two kids that are maybe identical athletic ability, there might be something that has one above the other that is what's going to lead you to kind of make that decision. So it's a case by case situation, but in theory, I want them to check all those boxes. That would be wonderful. But it's also my job to teach them and help them grow.
So you hit upon it a little bit. What would you say are the selling points of Western Illinois University?
I think that, there's a couple. You want me to give you my recruiting pitch?
Well, playing for Coach Goler, certainly.
Yeah, that's the obvious one, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Absolutely.
I think there's a few things. Like we have a lot for being a small school, which some people want smaller, classroom size. That's a big one. We don't really have we don't have any majors that you're not allowed to do. Another big one. That's a bonus, because sometimes at bigger schools, you're not allowed to do nursing or stuff like that because it conflicts, and we don't have that problem with where we're at. We have the same in and out of state tuition. We have the ability to get academic money. We have a conference that we're in where I think is very competitive and is hopefully going to get to a point one day where we can get 2 bids, because I do think we're on the right track. I know that's the goal of every coach in the Summit League. But at the same time, it's very much up for grabs as far as like, being able to move within the ranks. I mean, we just saw South Dakota State, who's never won one.
Right.
And I think there's a lot to be said on that too. Like if you are developing and recruiting well and doing your job, like there is a chance that you can move in the ranks. You're not stuck in the 5th or 6th spot every year, based on what I've seen for a year. I could be wrong, right? We could look back at this interview in like 3 years and I look like an idiot saying that. But I
Hey, there's
think
plenty of interviews that I look like an idiot, so that's
yeah,
not a problem.
that's my initial feeling on it. And then the last piece is that like I am confident that Colin and I can develop players to get better. And I think that the fact that, he comes from Louisiana and I come from my own playing background as well as the schools I was at before, like I'm confident that we know how to train and can do it like the best of the best do. And I think there's a lot to be said about that too.
Now, it might be too early. Do you know, do you usually play fall ball? Because I know like DePaul and Northwestern has like
Yeah.
a couple of weekends. So you guys play it out there?
Yeah. So the rule for D1 is that you can play 8 games in the fall, up to 8 games. Clearly COVID shut everything down this past
Right.
fall. Yes, we will definitely play some games. I don't know if we'll do the full 8, but we've started to kind of schedule. So we'll be out and about.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time. I wish you good luck this weekend. Unfortunately, DePaul is not allowing regular fans or press to the game, so I won't be able to come out and see you at May 8th, I believe it is, when you come to town. But good luck against DePaul.
I appreciate
And good luck. Good luck in the. Hopefully, you guys make the playoffs. But if not, you got a bright future there. And hopefully, either fall ball or next year, I will come out there and see some games in person.
You have to let me
Hopefully, they have fans. Hopefully by then.
keep an eye out on our social media because that's where they'll get put out. So look forward to seeing you.
I'll be checking it. Thank you very much for your time, Coach Goler, and good luck.
Thanks.